What's one thing that you believe about content marketing that most people would disagree with you on?
Oh, so I'm going to say that, so I see your point about like it being risky to like have these points of view. And I think I agree with that. But I don't know if this is like a sideways thought, but what I was going to say is when you talk about your experiences, like things you've tested, things you've done, things you have like studied, like actually studied, or like kind of have been able to do some intel on, like maybe interviewing a friend about something. I think doing those things, or like sharing your experience, for instance, it might feel scary. But I actually think it's less risky to go that route, because if it's an experience that you have and that you can talk about, you can crystallize, you can prove essentially, then there's less for people to poke holes into.
Yeah.
Because like what I actually, yeah. So maybe the thing that I believe about content marketing that most don't is I think people think that doing teardowns, like taking an example, like here's how Canva built their moat, like, and being the person outside looking in and like, doing whatever like outside kind of research to write this piece or whatever that piece could be, or like doing those kinds of teardowns. I don't think that's a good idea because one, it's essentially information arbitrage. Like anybody can do that theoretically, right? Two, that also requires making a lot of assumptions about the way a team operates. Yeah. Like, because I had been in-house at a tech company, at Fitbit for so long, like, I just know that like, and it's not going to be surprising to anybody, not really, which is there are just day-to-day so many decisions that are made that are completely arbitrary, that just come from like, I don't know, just get the thing done. Yes. Or like, I don't know, just hire my friend who runs that agency. They're fine. Right. Like, and there's nothing, it's not like these things are like horrible or bad. It's just when we are on the very outside looking in and being like, oh, Canva like found all these keywords and then they like dominated them and they create all these pages. Like, yeah, maybe they did. Maybe it was a very purposeful way they went about it. I don't know. And that's kind of the point is like that could have happened, or they maybe created helpful content and then it ended up being that it backed up into a really good keyword strategy. Yeah. Like, we don't know. So like, I don't think it's a good idea. I think most content marketers would say like, yeah, get more outside research. I'm going to challenge that and say, I think there's so much that we don't know being on the outside, and you're better off writing from your own perspective and your own experiences, the things that you can actually prove.
Yeah, no, I think I would agree with that. And that's why I too have not invested in teardowns like that. And being at HubSpot and Shopify, like two big teams, two very different mindsets of content, purely different methodologies too, basic methods too. Like SEO is obviously a part of it, but like the approach, the leadership was different. The executive leadership was different. The product teams were different. It's just, there's a lot of cooks in the kitchen and a lot of opinions that you can't even begin to relate to. And it's funny that you said that about accident versus intentionality. Masterclass was a content program that we used as an example when we were building our course, not in any like critique kind of way, but just as an example, XYZ of a couple different concepts. And I recently met one of the three folks that were part of that team that built that entire content program. And she's like, oh yeah, that was an accident. And I was like, well, that was a pretty awesome accident. And she was like, obviously we wanted to do that. Like that it wasn't a bad accident, but like we didn't write this 20,000 page strategy and implement it piece by piece. And bam, here we are ranking on page 1 for just a gazillion terms. And I was like, that is so cool. Like the fact that that was accidental, obviously like with good intentions, it made me think like how many awesome things were probably by accident or like didn't turn out the way that the founders or the creators thought they would. Like it just makes so many things feel more possible, but also it just, you look around and you're like, I have no idea how that works behind the scenes. Yeah. So I'm going to echo your opinion on that.
Oh my God. I love that you cited this, because Masterclass is one of those content examples that's cited as like, they did all this, like they have all these keywords, they dominated like this. And I kind of think like, I feel like this was accidentally on purpose. Like, yes, they wanted to create the best content on a certain subject. Of course they did. like that's the business model. I don't think that requires like an Ahrefs account to like do that, right? Like that's what they wanted to do. And then like maybe they got like a great video of Gordon Ramsay cooking eggs. And then it became, well, we have this great video of Gordon Ramsay cooking eggs. Why would we not do a blog post on this?
Right.
Like I think a lot of what I'm not saying that like it was easy, right?
Right.
What I'm just saying is that like I can see how a very competent marketer was just intuitively like, obviously we should do all these amazing things. And then it worked out because it's a great product and great content.
Yeah, no, that was a really interesting thing to learn. And I was just like, well, y'all are looked up to across the board. And she's like, yeah, it's been really cool to be a part of that. It's just like, I don't think it was as fancy as people make it out to be. You know, there was a lot of, like you said, intuitiveness and trial and error. And I don't know, the result was pretty awesome. So I do have a couple more rapid fire questions for you, if you'd like to answer those. What is the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Oh, in marketing or in general?
Up to you.
You know, the best piece of advice I've received is act as if. Like, act as if you know what you're doing, as if you know what you're going to say. And I got this advice from a former manager who I was, you know, much younger in my career and had very much struggled with having a strong presence, like in a meeting and stuff. And she was like, honestly, just act as if. Like, you deserve to be here. You can do this. Just act as if, and the rest will follow. So it's sort of like flipping imposter syndrome on its head.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. I like that a lot. Kind of like fake it till you make it in a way. But I like your saying better. Okay. What are your favorite books and podcasts even that have nothing to do with your job?
Oh, my favorite books. So some of the most influential books for me have been one, Nonviolent Communication by Marshall Rosenberg. It's a pretty easy read and it's pretty short, but he breaks down different kinds of ways to communicate that are not violent. And it's very much helped me with the way I speak or like the way I communicate, but also with the way I receive information. Mm-hmm. So like if I'm hearing someone speak very emotionally about something, it's helped me kind of read between the lines and understand, like, here's what I think they're actually saying. Like if someone's afraid of a situation, I can sense like, oh, they're not being defensive at me. They're afraid of this situation. And I think it's because of this reason. So that's one. The other one is this book called The Choice by Dr. Edith Ava Eger. I think that's how you say her name. Okay. But she's a Holocaust survivor who is now, she became a therapist, and I think was one of the like earliest therapists to really focus on PTSD. Mm-hmm. And this book is a memoir of hers, and it's such a beautiful book. Like the pain, the violence that she has experienced in the Holocaust throughout her life, like, and she has emerged from this as an extremely positive person. Like just reading that her story has been very inspirational and really enlightening to me and humbling. Like that's truly humbling, like getting to read someone else's story of this like unimaginable pain and violence and seeing how they came through the other side without any pity for themselves, I think is just so beautiful. And then a podcast that I like, I really like Jay Akunzo's Unthinkable podcast. It's such a fun show to listen to. It just feels like being plopped into his world where the way he talks about things, the kind of analogies that he gives, it's just it's fun. I mean, it's ultimately a business podcast or like a marketing podcast, but it's also a storytelling podcast. And it's just really refreshing to listen to.
That's awesome. I'll have to check that out.